People say addiction is the problem. They point at the substance, they judge the behavior, they look at the drinking, the pills, the drugs, the chaos. But what if I told you the truth? The truth is, addiction is not the problem. Addiction is the symptom and the real cause. It's trauma. Today, I'm going to share the truth that completely changed my life, the truth nobody teaches you in school, in society, or even in most recovery programs. See, people don't become addicts because they're weak or because they have a moral failing. They become addicts because they're wounded, because they're scared, because they're carrying a kind of pain they don't know how to express or heal. Addiction is the language of someone who lived through too much and had too little support. It's a survival mechanism, not a character flaw. This is a message the world desperately needs to hear. So, let's begin. For years, society has completely misunderstood addiction. They say things like, just stop, just have more self-control, just be stronger, or the most hurtful one of all, you're choosing this. Let me be clear. No, nobody chooses addiction. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to destroy their life. Addiction happens when pain becomes bigger than a person's ability to cope, and that pain. That's trauma. It's not always the dramatic movie-like trauma people imagine. Sometimes it's quiet trauma, subtle trauma, emotional trauma, but it is trauma nonetheless. Addiction is a survival mechanism for someone who had no other way to survive. So what is trauma, really? Most people think trauma is only about violence, abuse, or some horrific, tragic event. And yes, those things are traumatic, but trauma is so much bigger than that. Trauma is anything that overwhelms your nervous system and makes you feel unsafe. Trauma can be emotional neglect. It can be growing up with constant criticism. It's living in fear or with parents who were unpredictable and chaotic. Trauma is being told over and over that you're not enough. It's being shamed for who you are. It's chronic stress, abandonment, rejection, and living in a home where you're constantly walking on eggshells. Remember this, trauma is not just the event that happened. It's the emotional wound that gets left behind. And for so many, addiction becomes the only thing that seems to fill that wound, even if it's just for a little while. Trauma literally changes your biology. It rewires your brain and your body. First, it makes your amygdala, your brain's fear center, hyperactive. You start to see threats everywhere, even when there are none. Your vagus nerve gets stuck in survival mode, so your body is constantly in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. Next, it weakens your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and managing your emotions. And finally, it messes with your dopamine system, making it incredibly hard to feel pleasure or joy from normal, everyday things. This combination creates a storm inside you: anxiety, panic, depression, emotional overwhelm, numbness, and a deep, confusing sense of self-doubt and inner chaos. And when your nervous system is that dysregulated, your body will search for absolutely anything that feels like calm. That anything often becomes the addiction. Now, think about the moment trauma meets a substance. When someone carrying all this inner pain tries a substance for the first time, they don't just feel high, they feel regulated. For the first time, maybe ever, the fear disappears. The anxiety fades away. The tension in their muscles melts. The numbness finally warms up. The emotional chaos inside their head goes quiet. The shame softens. For a brief moment, the world feels safe. It's not about seeking pleasure. It's about finding relief. Addiction begins in that exact moment, the moment trauma feels temporarily soothed. That moment of relief becomes the blueprint for dependency. This is why we have to stop thinking of addiction as a drug problem. It's not. It's an emotional regulation problem. It's a difficulty managing your nervous system without external help. Your inner world feels unsafe, unpredictable, and painful, so you reach for something outside of yourself that promises relief. Addiction is not a search for a high. It's a search for safety. It's a search for soothing, for stillness, for just a moment of silence from the storm inside. It is self-medication for trauma the world never gave you the tools to handle. There are 3 types of hidden trauma that so many people with addiction carry. First is developmental trauma, growing up in a home without emotional safety or connection. Second is repressed trauma, painful events that you don't even remember because your mind buried them to protect you. And third is relational trauma, being hurt, rejected, abandoned, or unseen by the very people who were supposed to love you. You don't escape addiction just by removing the substance. You escape addiction by healing the trauma that made the substance so appealing in the first place. This is why you can't just quit. When you take away the addiction, you're taking away a person's only coping tool, and what's left? The trauma is still there. The anxiety is still there. The fear, the intrusive thoughts, the loneliness, the deep, unhealed wounds, they all remain. This is why quitting feels impossible, because you're not just fighting the drug, you're fighting all the pain that's buried underneath it. So, how do we heal the trauma that causes addiction? Healing addiction means healing trauma. The real path forward involves a few key steps. First, nervous system regulation. This means using tools like breathwork, grounding, and somatic exercises to teach your body how to feel safe again. Second, inner child healing. You learn to connect with and care for the wounded child inside you. Third is emotional literacy, learning to name what you actually feel instead of numbing it. Then comes trauma processing through therapy, safe conversations, or journaling. It's about rewriting those deep negative core beliefs and replacing "I am not enough" with "I am enough, I am safe, I deserve better." It's about building connection with a supportive community. And finally, it's about identity reconstruction. You stop seeing yourself as the addict. You become the warrior. When you heal the trauma, you remove the fuel that was feeding the addiction. Addiction didn't mean you were weak. It meant you were wounded. It meant you were human. It meant you were surviving something that no one else understood. Your trauma created the pain. Your addiction was the painkiller. But you are the cure. When you heal the trauma, the addiction loses its purpose. You are not broken. You are healing. You are awakening. You are becoming the person you were always meant to be. You are the warrior. Subscribe for more videos on healing. And remember, addiction was the symptom, trauma is the cause, and healing is the answer.